Welcome to the Unapologetic Heroine podcast, where myth is made manifest. As the author of The Way of Inanna, a heroine's guide to living unapologetically, this podcast is based on Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love and war who embodies multidimensionality and lives unapologetically true to her heart. We showcase the wisdom of individuals courageous enough to do the same. These are inspiring stories of what it takes to be authentically who you are. My guests honor the wisdom of love, embrace the polarities of being human, and walk their truth. I am your host, Shauna Zalazo, licensed psychotherapist, intuitive channel, and author of the book, The Way of Inanna. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome. I'm so excited for our conversation today. Known as Emily the Medium, Emily Greene is a highly sought-after psychic medium from Toronto, Ontario. She has been in formal practice for almost a decade. She began her career as an energy healer and soon segued to connecting with souls who have transitioned from life, offering support to loved ones seeking peace and comfort in their grief process. Partway through her journey, Emily's work shifted again to include connecting with incoming souls as well, spirit babies, as she calls them. These are souls preparing to incarnate. Just as she had with her end-of-life work, Emily now supports individuals and families in the transition of birth, encouraging a conscious relationship with this new wave of souls who are bravely entering the earth plane with the specific aim of shifting the collective vibration towards restored balance. Emily's practice includes readings, healings, and mentorship in intuitive development. She also hosts larger presentations and workshops, such as her incredibly popular super conscious conception healing events, which are geared to achieving an ideal energetic and somatic frequency to support pregnancy and the birthing process. She is a podcaster and author of a forthcoming book, which will be released later this spring. Like the goddess Inanna, Emily highlights the dynamic intersection between life and death and the importance of healing the womb, the second chakra, in order to birth a new reality based on love. Again, echoing Inanna, Emily is driven to empower others. She uses her innate wisdom, extrasensory perception, and discernment to support others to live consciously in balance, alignment, and fulfillment. Emily is a teacher for the new world. She is helping us to support, welcome, and learn from incoming souls who will affect the evolutionary shift in the collective awakening of humanity. Welcome, Emily.
Wow, that was the most beautiful introduction I've ever heard. Thank you so much, Shauna. I'm so grateful to be here. That was incredible. Thank you.
Oh, it's all true. And I'm so excited to have you here.
Wow.
Indeed, there is so much that I want to explore with you today, Emily. But first, I want to highlight what a pristinely clear channel you are and how, despite the fact that your transmission is of the highest level, you are so down to earth and grounded, making your interdimensional work accessible and applicable in the here and now. I know the level of focus, commitment, and attention that goes into healing oneself in order to accomplish this. It is truly inspiring to witness this level of clarity in a teacher. So it's very beautiful to experience you in connection today. You have said that your gift has always been accessible to you, even as a young child, but that after college, while working in the field of optometry, you found yourself at an impasse. Can you tell us what happened and how you moved through that impasse?
Yes, thank you. It was certainly one of the major rites of passage and initiations of my life and of my experience. And I really, at that time in my life and in the time before that as well, at the time when I was sort of moving into college and deciding to get on that path, and then eventually landed in this optometric field where I was really, truly, I was sitting with people and seeing into their souls and looking into their eyes. And, I was like, there's something more here. I love this work and I'm passionate about it, but I know that my connection with people and the connection to the soul and the connection to the spirit that lies behind the physical body is so much more. And so it was during that time that I knew that I had to go back into experiences that I had in childhood and really re-explore those moments where I, could see more than maybe other people were perceiving around me, or I could hear more than was actually being said, or I could see more than was being shown. And so at that time, I went back into that period of time, which, I always just say if you had told me that I would be going back in and making, work and writing a book and having sort of my career revolve all around this. I mean, it still surprises me every day. It delights me every day. But yeah, it was actually quite, sometimes when I speak about that transition from my sort of work in the medical field and then into this work I'm doing now, I think I sometimes oversimplify it. And it's just like, oh, I just, decided one day that I need to go back and re-explore my abilities. But it was truly so much more than that. And there was so much at that time that was so exciting. And I knew that there was something just beyond the threshold after I made the decision to really explore. And of course, I didn't move out of that field right away. It took me some time, but it was exciting. It was terrifying. It was, there was a lot of I guess, sort of repressed trauma that I had from being a very hyper, very aware, very sensitive, very psychic child that I had to kind of reckon with and reconcile with. And just, feeling like, where am I going to go to get the support that I feel that I need in order to move through this transition and through this into this next kind of expression of my work. So there was a very beautiful high moments in that I'm moving in the direction that my soul wants me to move. And there was also moments where my, more human kind of need and desire for control and comfort and all these things was deeply threatened and deeply scared at the same time. So, looking back, I'm very proud of that version of myself who took steps so bravely in the direction of Dharma, really, and of my soul. So that's sort of the breaking down that time in my life. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, because indeed, I think that's so important for folks to realize this beautiful process. It's truly a process. And when you identified that you didn't just switch instantly and you stayed in, the medical field for a little bit, that
Yes.
whole experience really highlights how we have to go through this integration. And I love how you trusted yourself and trusted what was emerging. It's so important. And indeed, in this line of work, it is common to face misunderstandings of what mediumship and channeling is.
Yes.
Did you face that? Did you face external judgment as you began your career? And then if you did, how did you navigate it?
Yes. Fantastic question. I certainly did. It was really, I speak about this often, that at the beginning when I was, really, I had accepted these abilities again, or re-accepted them, or reintegrated them, and really started to work with them kind of privately. I only one or two people in my world knew sort of what I was exploring and what I was doing. But once it came time to start kind of sharing more about this and about what I had been working with, and starting opening up to readings with different people, and working with family and friends and colleagues and things like this, I think at the beginning, I was a little bit naive. I was just like, well, this is so important to me. And so everybody will recognize how important this is and how pure my intention is. I think that's really, I think it's something that's so interesting, where I felt and I knew the purity of my intention, and that really my intention was to support people and to help people. And that had really been, since I was a child, all I wanted to do. I just didn't know how I was exactly going to do it. And so having my intention be questioned, of, are you just trying to get something, or are you trying to manipulate people, or are you trying to do this and that, was so affronting and so hurtful, truly. And that definitely took some time to reconcile with. And, I have this part of myself that I had to also work with as well, which is that, feeling the need to kind of prove myself to people, and to prove the validity of my work, or what I feel is important, or what I'm interested in. And so I really had to be mindful to recognize when I was doing that, of, am I trying to prove myself to this person, or prove the truth of this? And when, I really had to get to this point where that's not at all what I have to do. And I have a great a great connection to the symbolism of a lighthouse. And so coming back to that all you have to do is just turn your light up and shine and speak what is coming through you and what you feel is true. And it is not up to you how people receive that, or if they, what they believe about your intention. That's not for you to manage or control, or to even have to, have a second thought of that in your mind. So it was, it took a little bit of time for me to get there, though. And now I can truly say that because of that shift in my perspective, that most people who I spend time around, whether that's family, friends, or just people I meet on the street, strangers, people that I just end up talking to about my work, I find that they're naturally just kind of responding to, I think, the vibration of that. I'm not here to convince you, or to change your mind, or to make you think the way that I think, or see things the way that I see things. And naturally, I feel that people are just able to be that much more open-minded.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think that is super important for folks to understand, is because when we start in with intuitive development, when we expand our intuition, I think that is such an important piece to really go back to the intention, the pure intention to be on a path of compassionate service, and just to really focus on, like, why am I interested in this? And what is this calling that's coming forth? So I really appreciate what you've shared. Thank you.
Thank you.
And absolutely. And as was the case in Inanna's process, you started your career with what I call the death mysteries, beginning in mediumship with souls who've passed. How did working with the rites of death in this way prepare you for the work you're doing today?
Oh, wow. That's such a fantastic question. Thank you. Wow. Oh, my goodness. In so many ways. And I will just preface this by saying that when I was working at the beginning of my career, and midway through my career, and working with mediumship and working with souls who had either recently or passed away long ago, that I really truly thought that this was the sweet spot. This is where I wanted to be. This is what how I wanted to kind of identify my work and identify myself with. I felt so strongly, and every day I would see these transformations of people who were, deep in their grief and in their confusion and in their despair, and just feeling so lost and confused and searching for their loved ones' vibrations, still here on the physical plane, even though they were in a different space. And so, really going into that process with every person that I met with, of really kind of identifying and feeling so intimately their experience of their grief, and being able to go, oh yes, I can feel that it hurts here, and these moments hurt, and at this point, at this time in the year, or in the week, or in the month, or on this particular day, just really heavily identified with these people, and taking them from, meeting them and speaking with them, and then moving through the entire process of a reading. Just the alchemy that could happen even just in 1 hour was just so mind-blowingly beautiful to me. And I was just hooked. I was hooked. I was like, I could do this forever and ever and ever. And, I still feel that way. I still feel that is so beautiful. And it is still a part of my work in one way or another. But, at a certain point, things started to switch as I was continuing to do this work. Then I started to have these energies come in who identified themselves as souls who were incoming. And at the time, that was actually, it was a little mind-bending for me. And it took me some time to sort of get comfortable with that concept. It really did. I had to kind of go, wait a second. But then after a little while, everything started to come together, and I started to understand. I see that really, we can talk to these energies, either immediately after they've passed away, or long 20, 30, 40 years after they've passed away. And that there is still in spirit, there is this process that we go through. And of course, time doesn't exist in the same way, but at a certain point, different energies are going to start preparing for another incarnation, whether that is however long they decide to take. And so it really kind of made sense full circle. I understand now. And I think to answer your question specifically, I think what most helped me about doing mediumship before I started to work with spirit babies was just sort of understanding where that soul had perhaps been before. What had they done before? What was the wisdom of their experience? What had they learned in their previous incarnation? How are they trying to take that into their upcoming incarnation? And then also being able to recognize when a soul was perhaps quite new and quite fresh, and they didn't necessarily have the same experiences as maybe some of the other souls that I had worked with. So it just, on a macro level, it gave me this really digestible and full-bodied spectrum of understanding of the soul and life and death, and that truly it gave me this, because I think this is thrown around quite a bit. The idea of the infinity of the soul, and I always believed that. I really always believed we are truly infinite. We have. I read this beautiful quote that says, we truly only have one life, but it's just meant we have many chapters of many incarnations. And I think that my experiences in this work just gave me the real digestible and visceral understanding of how infinite we are. And just like I said with that quote, that we truly, really do only have one life, just with many chapters.
Thank you so much for that answer. And it so highlights the way in which I see you exemplify Inanna's wisdom, because certainly she bridges these two. And to your point, you've brought it full circle, or spirit has brought it full circle to you. And I also want to honor that what you had said about mediumship. I worked as a grief counselor myself, both in hospice and in private practice, and I observed the benefits of mediumship firsthand and consistently. Whenever I worked with somebody who sought out mediumship, they experienced the level of healing from just one session that might have taken me months, right, through traditional counseling. So I so see that mediumship is such an important and powerful form of grief counseling. And also, so is this new work that you're doing. And I find it so aligned, the way in which your work shifted feels reflective of the shift on the planet as well.
Yes.
Something very significant is occurring with Mother Earth as she moves through her own ascension process. Is there one overarching message these incoming souls, the spirit babies that you work with, consistently convey, Emily?
Well, first of all, I love your perception that there is certainly a connection between the shift of this work into what I'm doing now and the shift that Mother Earth is going through. That's exactly it. That's exactly right. And that is one of the kind of subtle undercurrents in the reason why I feel that I'm doing this work, and why I have been kind of instructed to do this work, and why I've even just been instructed to write the book that I'm currently writing all around topics such as this. And that is one of the chapters that I'll cover eventually, soon, is the connection between this ascension process and this shift and these souls that are incoming. And so, to answer your question, in terms of an overarching message, my goodness, it's I'm trying to sum it up. I think that the one, and this is perhaps the most simple one, but it is one of my most favorites, is that we are here, you and I and everybody else who is alive and breathing, whatever age they're at, whether they're 5 years old or 85 years old or 95 years old or 17, that everybody who is present and embodied and is in current incarnation on planet Earth right now is such an important part of the shift that is happening, and that we all individually are playing our roles, whether we realize that we're playing our roles or not, and that these souls that are coming in are really here to kind of kick off the next I guess you could say group of souls who are here to sort of take, almost, if we're using an analogy of a relay race, we're passing the torch to them, will be getting ready to pass the torch to them, and they will be sort of taking us through the final, 75%, final 15% of the journey that we're here, and the shifting that planet Earth is going through. And so that's been the most amazing thing to hear, a kind of a collective message from them, is that we're coming in to really help you bring this process and this shift into completion, and to really so we can all have an experience of a new Earth and a new experience on Earth, and a return to, really ultimately a return to love, and a return to harmony, and a return to peace, because that's always been present. We just it has been present in the past, I should say. We just have gotten a little mixed up along the way. And so we're here there's a restoration, I believe, that's happening with help of these energies that are incoming.
That is so beautiful. And I could not agree more. And bless you for doing this work. Inanna's mythology highlights the womb space, the second chakra, as the creative center for living love. The generative center is also a focal point for you. You regularly host, sold out super conscious conception healing events for just this purpose. Can you tell us, Emily, a little bit about these events?
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely. And I feel that what you just mentioned, and the return to the second chakra and the healing of the second chakra, I believe that it is a chakra widely. I mean, I could go into a whole tangent about this, but I believe that over the course of the last 50 to 100 years, there has been a huge sort of or I guess I could say kind of a measured or a very subtle sort of degradation of the sacral chakra in both men and women, or masculine or feminine identifying people. That this is a center, this is an area that has taken a lot of heat, let's say, and not always the good kind of heat. And so I believe that there is a lot of love that this area and the center and the womb space is needing, and that can go for anybody, whether they're trying to conceive or not. Of course, I do these events sort of specifically geared towards people who are looking to conceive or have been having difficulty conceiving, or even are currently pregnant, or I have some women who are also postpartum come to these events. And really what they are ultimately is a chance for people who are any people, and I have men, women, have children come to these events. It's really this gathering space for people who are interested in having a higher connection, not only with themselves and their bodies and their womb spaces, but also the souls who will eventually be entering or are currently residing within these beautiful bodies of ours. And just really, that's ultimately what it is. It's an event of connection. It's also to help everyone feel really kind of ready to receive these energies, as I have a lot of people who are connecting with the souls of their children on their own. And they're like, wow, they just feel so powerful. And sometimes when I feel their energy, I just almost feel so overpowered with emotion. I just kind of weep, and it's just so intense. And, I think that is really a great description of these energies who are coming in. They're certainly very powerful and don't mean to be overpowering. That's just their deep connection to source and to love. But I think it just helps people to connect to themselves, to the energies coming in. It helps them support their bodies in whatever way that they need or what that looks like, and to really kind of feel this give them a chance to really feel this vibration of these incoming energies and their power.
What an amazing opportunity. Is your next one soon? When is your next?
It is.
Super conscious. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's next week. It's January 31st. Yeah, next Tuesday.
Amazing. How wonderful.
Yes.
I will make sure to include ways to connect with you so they can find more out about this from your website.
Thank you.
Absolutely. For those who are trying to conceive, is there one or maybe a few things they can do to begin fostering a connection with the child coming in?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful question. Yeah, what I usually suggest, and of course I'm working with different people who are at varying, places of their own discovery of sort of a spiritual communication, of communicating with a higher power, their higher self, or a guide or a teacher. So I try and make the suggestions for communication at first just as accessible as possible. And my one suggestion is to, just as you, and I really suggest this for anything, but this is the same goes here. Just as you would build, if you were interested in forming a connection with somebody, whether that was a friend or a colleague or, even a romantic partner, that we're just so interested to know more about that person and to communicate with them. And maybe we're communicating with them daily, or maybe only a couple times a week as we're sort of building the relationship with them. And I suggest that everyone do the same. And that could be whether you're a seasoned sort of meditation practitioner or not, is really just, it can be as simple as, sitting down and putting one hand on your heart and one hand over your navel or your sacral chakra lower on your belly, And taking a few deep breaths into both of these areas and starting to feel the energy pass back and forth between the sacral and the navel and the heart, and then back again, sort of feeling this connection between three of these really powerful centers that are involved in conception, the heart and the sacral chakra and the navel center, and feeling the energy kind of move between these centers, and then just opening up the mind and sending out what I call just like a little message, and just saying, if there is an energy and a soul who is looking to make their way into my life, into into an incarnation, I welcome you in now. And then also just staying after that, staying in a state of quiet receptivity and just seeing what comes through to you. And for some people, they're like, all I got was a little warmth in my heart. And usually what I say to them is, yes, that's perfect. That's perfect. That is the start of a connection. That is the start of a communication. Keep going. And the next time you sit, it will build and build and build and build. So I really feel that it doesn't have to be complicated to build a relationship with these energies. And I think sometimes it can be a little difficult for people to wrap their minds around, because it is more non-physical than a loved one, say. We have a loved one and we know their name and we know what they look like. It's a little different with a soul who we haven't yet met. But that's kind of the whole point, is that you haven't yet met them, but you have the chance to build a relationship with them and sort of get to know them before they are physically embodied.
I think this is such an important piece of information to share for so many reasons, but it also establishes a sense of regarding the body as a temple, like the doorway to connection to this beautiful soul. I love this, and the reverence it builds within for self and for the incoming child. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Often when I'm doing readings, I'm shown the soul contract between parents and children. This is the mutual agreements we engage in prior to incarnating, when we are designing our life's course curriculum, so to speak, to support each other's evolutionary process. Soul contracts are commitments made in love as an opportunity to be in service to one another in a beautiful way. From your own lens, can these contracts be altered with conscious intention while we are here on the physical plane?
Great question. Oh, that's so exciting. Absolutely. I do believe that they can be, just as, when a contract is drawn up between two parties here in the physical world, one party draws the contract up and the other party reviews the contract and sees if there's any changes that need to be made. And I believe that the same is true in this kind of preconception phase, where, that the souls will often say to me, to their parents, this is really what I'm looking for. This is what I'm trying to contribute, or this is what I'm trying to understand, or this is what I'm looking to try to work on in this incarnation. And do you feel comfortable in supporting me in that? And I think just, giving the parents that sort of information is so clarifying down the line. Because as then as a soul comes through the birth canal and is born and then grows up, and then maybe this theme pops up, let's say when they're 5 years old, then the parent is able to kind of almost recognize, that's right, that was a part of our contract, and I understand why that's coming up at this time, and is able to be almost more understanding and accepting of the fact that, yes, we agreed to this, and I agreed to have this experience with you, and we agreed to work on this together, or you really wanted, it was very important for you as a soul to explore this area or explore this theme or this emotion, and I'm going to do my best as a parent to support you in that. So to answer your question though, yes, absolutely. I think that it's and it's one of my favorite parts of doing the preconception communication, is bringing in the soul contract that is oftentimes being formed kind of as we speak. So yes.
I love that, because it really speaks to the plasticity of evolution, that the way that it's this ongoing, can expand, can shift, can change.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I have also experienced these children in my own channeling, and wow, what strong wills they have.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you were describing the power energy of that they bring forward as sort of a reflection to as a result of their connection to source, their direct connection to source, I really empathize with parents trying to implement old ways of parenting them.
Oh, yes.
How do we shift our parenting style to best meet their beautiful capacity?
That's such a good question. Yes, and I feel that it can be very, what I have experienced just in my observations of parents going through this process and kind of coming right up close and personal with, like you said, their strong will, and then really kind of having to reconcile with different old ways of parenting. It can be really difficult for some people, and for others, I have found also that they've just sort of had this, it's almost amazing for me to just observe where when they get into the energy field or the presence of one of these energies, of these souls, it almost seems that their transformation in their viewpoints and their perspectives and perhaps old ways that they were thinking that they would do things, or maybe even the way that their parents raised them, or with the certain values or principles or concepts that their parents raised them with, that they almost have this very rapid transformation in the face of this incoming energy. It's almost quite amazing where, I've seen people who are like, I used to think this way, XYZ, only a year and a half ago, and now I think this way. And I just go, wow, the transformation of consciousness that these souls are initiating is just absolutely incredible. But I also recognize that for some, it can be more difficult and it can feel much more challenging. And I think perhaps that is because we may be fighting it, which is natural. I mean, when we're used to doing things or seeing things a certain way, and then we have the opportunity to completely let go of that and to let that completely die and rebirth a new perspective or way of doing things, I think of course, it's natural for there to be some degree of resistance. And so my suggestions are, oh man, I think to recognize when somebody might be in a resistance to a new way of being or doing or living as a way to support their children. I think the recognition of the resistance can be enough of a gap for then that soul to kind of come in and help that parent or that person transform. That is one thing that I've noticed a lot, is that when we ask for these souls help, like even just a prayer that's as simple as, I'm really having a hard time, setting some ground rules in the relationship with some family members before my baby comes, and then just asking this soul, please help me implement these ground rules so that we can have the kind of the most peaceful existence for you possible. And then I see that these souls come in and they will really help with that. They will help give the parent the energy or the courage that they need to make those decisions and that sort of thing. So that's something that I've noticed, and that's what I suggest, is to ask for help. And they're certainly more than willing to support us in that endeavor.
Thank you for that so much. And I see in that the way in which they are clearly here to teach us and to help us sort of to serve in many ways, as much as we are helping initiate them as a sort of guide on the physical plane here as their parents. They are definitely initiating us to this new way of being human.
Precisely.
So I love that. I love the simplicity of being able to ask. And we do this, with our guides, with the angelic realm, with the ascended masters, just to directly ask. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that will be so valuable to parents to see how quickly things can shift if you just tune in and ask for that support. So Exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
And also, there's another very significant aspect of your work, which is teaching intuitive development. Yes. Which I love for the ways in which it empowers others. What is the most important thing we can do to begin our journey of strengthening our intuition? I know that's a big question, but it was just a surface level. If there was a shorter answer, what would that be?
Yes, it is a big question, but I love it. I think that one of my main things that I am trying to communicate to people when I'm first kind of in contact with them, talking about the topics of intuitive development or just understanding our abilities, is that I really believe that each person on this planet, whether or not they identify with this as being true, has some connection to, and it can, for some people be quite repressed or sort of, buried under some layers. But I believe that we all have the capacity towards having what I call, a strong and fluid relationship with what I call our psychic mechanism, which is just really the way in which your personal, your unique, intuitive and psychic and interdimensional abilities are working. How are they working? What is their operation? How are they showing up for you? Because I'm always having people come to me and saying, I had this experience, or I had this experience, or I saw this thing, or I had this dream, or I had this vision, and kind of almost looking for a way to have me kind of validate those experiences for them, or sort of almost help them make them real for them, or that this is a real experience and you weren't just imagining this or making this up, or this sort of thing. This is really a piece of information that came to you. And so my suggestion would be for people to not compare themselves to anybody else who's speaking about their abilities. Because I certainly know that I did that at the beginning when I was, listening to all different kinds of beautiful people speaking about their abilities and hearing them say, I have it happen like this or that. And I go, well, that doesn't happen for me like that. So I must not be XYZ. And so I think that there is a lot of need for just quiet kind of contemplation of your intuition and sort of going, okay, what is happening here? And this feels very real to me. And I'm going to kind of keep this to myself for a little bit. And I'm going to explore this on my own. And I'm going to maybe play around with this. And I'm going to give myself opportunities to basically trust in what is happening for me. So that would be sort of my couple of different suggestions, is just like to try to not compare yourself as much as possible until you really have a more solid understanding or a grasp of how things are working for you as an individual. And then also to give yourself sort of just some quiet time to explore and to create, I love to make it fun. I love to, be walking down the road and close my eyes and be like, what's the color of the next car that's going to pass by? And I see the color red in my mind. And then I open my eyes and the car that drives by me next is the color red. I really think it's beautiful to make it fun and to be lighthearted and playful and joyful about developing your intuition. And it's one of the greatest gifts, I believe, of certainly of my life is discovering this connection for myself and just in the way that I move through the world, but also really hopefully helping people to discover that connection for themselves as well.
Thank you so much for that. I love the piece around it, making it fun and inviting in that joy. It really allows us to lean into our gifts in the way in which it helps us open to the magic that's around us, and to see it just changes our whole reality when we begin to consciously engage through our intuition with the magic that is everywhere. So thank you for shedding light on that. To do the work that you do, acting as a bridge to the spirit world, paradoxically requires having firmly established boundaries to protect your own energy, but also for the cultivation of the sacred space needed for the work that you do to ensure integrity and objectivity. There is a chapter in my own book dedicated to sacred boundaries, and certainly Inanna is a great role model for what that looks like in the world of social, right? She's definitely in the world of social media, instant access, and collective fear. What are some of the best ways that you have learned in your own life to erect sacred boundaries?
Wow, what a fantastic question. It's so beautiful. And, I think that this is, for me, this is an ever evolving, it's like kind of a revolving door, the topic of sacred boundaries. I think that, to be honest with you, it actually changes day to day, which I think is kind of the beautiful part, where, there may be a day where I actually have more energy or more, light or more perspective to give. And so the boundaries that exist on that certain day may actually be different than exist, maybe a day kind of in the past. So I feel that I am open to, I have kind of some core boundaries that just exist. One of them is just respect. I vow to always respect myself and my perspectives, but I also vow to respect other people and their perspectives. And so for me, that means that because I believe that I do a pretty good job. I mean, I'm certainly not always perfect, but I do a pretty good job of respecting other people's perspectives and viewpoints and seeing things just the way that they see them. It's also important to me that other people do the same. They're at least just open-minded to, to different sort of perspectives or things that I might hold or share, and that if that respect isn't there, or that respect isn't mutual, then it's just not a relationship or a connection that I can prioritize. And so that's a big thing. I think that's very, very important. And it's certainly, not anything that I do with any kind of, judgment, or, they don't respect me or they don't see my perspectives. It's just, we're just at different places in what, in how we can relate to each other and communicate and connect to each other. So that is a foundational sort of boundary for me. And that has certainly, just holding that and really putting that into practice every day in how I interact with people and how I invite people in to interact with me has really changed a lot for me. And then just in terms of some practical things, I like you mentioned, social media access and things like this. I really try to hold social media as lightly as possible as well. I think that it can be so commanding and demanding of our attention and of our time. And so I kind of just don't follow any of the rules of how often you're supposed to do this or that, or you're supposed to talk about this or say this or don't say that, or talk about this at this time. And I just sort of say, I don't want to do any of that. I'm just going to interact with it in the way that I wish to interact with it. And I'm not going to worry so much about what I shouldn't or should or need to be doing. And I think that actually is a good sacred boundary that I kind of apply to a lot of things beyond even just social media, just sort of like, I'm going to interact with certain things in a way that feels good for me. So something that doesn't feel good for me is watching the news. And I know some people who think that is kind of, maybe avoidant or this and that. And it's just not the way that I wish to interact with reality. And so I choose not to, and I choose to consume my news in other ways beyond just that. So I think that those are kind of a couple examples of how I hold boundaries in my sacred boundaries in my world, in my reality.
Oh, I align with so much of what you've just said. And that is so empowering. And I love what you highlighted about that it changes, depending on where we are and what process we're in, really, what we need to feel safe can shift. So thank you very much. And as we draw to a close, Emily, I am so excited for your forthcoming book. Without giving too much away, what can readers look forward to in getting your book?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking. I will certainly take any excuse I can to speak about it. And I know, as you know, just the process, as we sort of spoke about briefly off air, just how what a process it is to write a book. And I know you've just gone through it. And so it was so beautiful for me to hear even just your perspective. And you've just created such a beautiful work of art in your book, The Way of Inanna. It's just been so beautiful. And you've really been an expander for me as I've watched you speak about your book and share its teachings and everything else. But to get back to your question, my book is an exploration from beginning to end of really from a very macro level, coming back to sort of what we were speaking about before. It's an exploration of why is this time on the planet so significant, and how are the energies that are coming in and being born right now tied into the significance of this time. And not even just this specific time, even, linking back to certain periods of time like 2012 and, through the time through the mid 90s and the early 2000s, and just kind of finding the link between these points of time in our past, in our history, and the time that is happening right now. And then also going into more specific topics such as conception and how to really engage with the process of conception from a spiritual perspective. Also going into topics such as miscarriage and early infant loss, and exploring just what is happening there from a soul perspective, from a spiritual perspective. Going into birth and how we can support children in their process of being birthed into this world, which is perhaps one of my favorite topics. I've discovered so much amazing information around birth that it had just never occurred to me once in my life. And just hearing from these souls some of the things that they would like to share with us around birth, from their perspective, I mean, so often, of course, we think about the mother, and we forget that there is this brand new soul who is, coming into incarnation, and what is their experience like? And so we explore that. We explore just some of my kind of, I guess, projections of how I think that these souls are going to create a ripple through time and space into the future. And so that's kind of, I guess, a good summary, as good as I can give at this moment in time. But I appreciate you asking.
Oh, I cannot wait. And I know listeners are going to be so excited to grab this book as soon as it comes out. There's just so much in there that is incredibly valuable right now. And I'm thrilled for it to come out.
Thank you.
And I truly feel such a strong resonance with your incredible work. And I know that it is exactly the medicine we need right now on the planet to help us collectively birth a new reality based on unconditional love. Thank you for the amazing work you do and for being here with me today. Please tell us where we can find you, work with you, or attend one of your events.
Thank you, Shauna. This was just absolutely one of the most beautiful interviews I have done in many, many years. So I appreciate it. It truly was. It was so amazing to sit with you. And how people can find me is I'm on Instagram, when I decide to playfully engage with Instagram. I'm at Emily the Medium. I also have a podcast that I'm not super active on, but there are some good archived episodes on there. It's also Emily the Medium. And to get in touch with the events, the Super Conscious Conception events, you can either search the event name Super Conscious Conception on an Eventbrite and see if there's an event going on right now. But the best place to kind of get connected with that is either on my Instagram or on my newsletter, which you can find on my Instagram. It's kind of everything is that's sort of the central hub. So that's how everything can be connected back.
Thank you so much, Emily. And may our listeners experience fulfillment on every level with great ease and joy. Thank you.
And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Unapologetic Heroine podcast, featuring remarkable individuals living their truth. For more wisdom on how to support your own journey toward honoring your heart and courageously alchemizing our world through the power of love, pick up my book, The Way of Inanna, A Heroine's Guide to Living Unapologetically, at booksellers worldwide.